just 14 weeks after the 3 Mile Island reactor accident and 34 years to the day after the Trinity atomic test. The small community of Church Rock, New Mexico, became the scene of another nuclear tragedy. 90 million gallons of liquid radioactive waste and 1,100 tons of solid mill wastes burst through a broken dam wall at the Church Rock uranium mill facility, creating a flood of deadly effluents that permanently contaminated the Perco River. No one knows exactly how much radioactivity was released into the air during the 3 Mile Island accident. The site monitors were shut down after their measurements of radioactive releases went off the scale. Well, isn't that typical of the officials to do that shit? But the American public knows even less about the Church Rock spill, and 5 weeks after it occurred, the mine and mill operator, United Nuclear Corporation, was back in business at Church Rock as if nothing had happened. Well, hell, I'd never even heard of this myself. How about y'all? Today, the Church Rock accident is acknowledged as likely the largest single release of radioactive contamination ever to place in U.S. history outside of the atomic bomb tests. Why is the Church Rock spill the worst into gullies, contaminated fields, and the animals that grazed there, and made drinking water deadly? So anonymous in the annals of our nuclear history? Perhaps the answer lies in where it took place and who it affected. Church Rock was a small farming community of Native Americans, mainly Navajo, eking out a subsistence living off the arid southwestern land. Nearby, several 100 million gallons of liquid uranium mill tailings were sitting in a pond waiting for evaporation to leave behind solid tailings for storage. On the morning of July 16, 1979, part of the dam wall collapsed, releasing a roaring flood of radioactivity. It was both a predicted and preventable failing, but steps were never taken to avert the disaster. Figures. UNC CEO David Hahn, Hann, in later congressional hearings described the accident as a risk, and we undertook this. Several state regulatory agencies had remained silent in the face of warnings by UNC's own consultant that the dam, as constructed, was vulnerable. When cleanup was demanded, UNC completed removal of just 1%. Did you hear that? Just 1% of the spilled tailings and liquids. Stagnant pools where children played were found to have levels of radiation 100 to 500 times natural background. Sheep and goats were too contaminated to eat. Wells and other drinking water sources were shut down. However, the accident happened far from civilization in a remote area inhabited by possibly the most poverty-stricken and disenfranchised community of people in the country, Native Americans. Well, ain't that just right? More annihilation of our people. The massacres and smallpox blankets were over, but another deliberate act of racially based discrimination, the avoidable radioactive contamination of the Navajo community, and likely well beyond it, went unpunished and largely unreported. Today, the 3 Mile Island accident is remembered, marked, and rightly alluded to as a further example of the deadly risks of nuclear power. Rarely is the Church Rock anniversary either known or noted. The long-term effects of this enormous level of radioactive contamination are not yet fully measured, given that the health effects resulting from radiation exposure can take decades to appear and can affect future generations. Native Americans' land in the Southwest